So today I want to talk about the transformation of the Islamic Republic, specifically in the last 1 year. What happened, what is happening, and what will happen, in my humble opinion, in the short term and long term. So we are going to talk about the security force and the IRGC and political transition in Iran. Almost all of you have heard about the President Trump and his administration talking about the regime change in Iran, that the regime has changed in Iran. The Secretary of War, President Trump, and a lot of people in administration claiming that after February 2026 war, the regime has changed. In a very narrow sense, he's right, honestly. The regime has changed, but unfortunately, that change is not a change that the most Iranian wants to see it. My argument here, and I'm trying to show, that the Islamic Republic has shifted from a theocratic regime from 1979 to 1989 to a theocratic Republican under Hashemi and Khatami, to the theocratic security regime from Ahmadinejad to Raisi. And right now what we are seeing is to a more security-dominated theocratic regime. And this is some kind of the regime change, but not the regime change that the Iranian people wants to see it. In the center of this transition, that many of you are watching, trying to understand, is Iran security forces and specifically the Revolutionary Guard Corps. My argument is, for this presentation, that the IRGC gradually transformed from a militia created in 1979 to what we have it right now as a dominant role, as a state, not as a deep state anymore, to the state. And we have to think about it, to what extent this phase that the Revolutionary Guard is coming to dominate the politics is temporary or is it permanent? But understanding politics in Iran, without understanding the Revolutionary Guard and without understanding the broader security force in Iran, is absolutely useless. You have to know what these people are, who these people are, what they want, what their ideology is, how they came this process, and where they are going. So we will focus on IRGC, and I will try to show that this regime change that the President Trump is talking is not something that happened over the night, is a process. The war with the United States and Israel just accelerate this process, that the IRGC started from a militia protector group to the military, to the more conglomerate armed force, to the deep state, and finally to a state by itself. I will talk a little bit about these issues, and at the end of the presentation, I will talk about who are these people, what they are thinking, what are the different cleavages even inside of the Revolutionary Guard. So you have to remember, for most of you, you already knows that, but because we have a very broad audience, that I have to start from the beginning, that the revolution was successful in 1979, and immediately after that, some of the revolutionaries came together, shaped an organization at that time, a militia, called Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. There is no name of Iran in this institution, projecting the Shia Islamist ideologies, that this is the force that's trying to protect Islamic revolution and its ideology, rather than protecting Iran and its territory. During this time, Ayatollah Khomeini is a supreme leader. The Vilayat Faqih is the main ideology of the Islamic Republic, meaningly the clergy, the mujtahid, is political ruler, legitimate political ruler, and everything in this country, every law, every regulation should be based on Islam and Islamic Sharia. And the clergies are the individual or the group who's supposed to make sure that all of the law are aligned with the Islamic Sharia. And all of this Islamic law should be implemented. Learning from the past, especially from the 1952 situation or event in Iran, the revolutionary decided to create a militia to protect the clergy. This time, the IRGC is working like a bodyguard for the clerical establishment and for the clergy. From 1980 to 1983, the most important job of the Revolutionary Guard is trying to neutralize two threats. The first threat is any movement or any effort by the army, Iranian army, against the regime. So they are working as a counter-coup d'etat force, trying to keep the Iran Artesh or Iran army under the control. And the second is trying to undermine other political groups, like leftist, mujahideen, nativist, liberal, intellectual group and political group, in order to let the clergy to consolidate the power. During this time, IRGC divided to 10 units. One of the units is the civil militia Basij, but most important unit of the IRGC during this time is IRGC intelligence unit. Interestingly enough, almost all of the IRGC commander right now ruling Iran has a connection to the intelligence unit of the IRGC. From Murtaza Rezai, Mohsen Rezai, Ahmad Wahidi right now, Zulqat, General Zulqat, all of them started their work from intelligence unit of IRGC. And I will explain why this unit became so powerful in the long term. But this is the time from 1979 to almost 83, 84, that the IRGC works mostly as a militia, as a bodyguard, as a protector of the supreme leader, Ayatollah Khomeini, and the clerical establishment. But the war between Iran and Iraq facilitated the expansion of IRGC. IRGC, from 1983, 1984, went through the transition. First, we have a creation of Ministry of Intelligence and Security, MIOS, in 1983, 1984. And based on the Supreme Leader Khomeini at that time order, all of the intelligence activities went under control of MIOS. So IRGC, people who worked in the intelligence organization, they had two options: to join MIOS or to stop to work in another unit. IRGC intelligence unit transformed from domestic intelligence to the military intelligence and intelligence abroad. The second issue was when the IRGC started to expand from a militia to the three branch of the military, equal with the Iran army or Artesh. IRGC had ground force, navy, and air force. Air force and the ground force from 1985 to 1989 are a very small unit. The air force has only a few Russian helicopter. The navy, IRGC navy has only a few boats, nothing very important. The IRGC ground force was the main pillar of the IRGC. But Iran-Iraq war helped the IRGC to expand rapidly and gradually to institutionalize itself. After the war was ended, Khomeini is dead, the war is over, and Ayatollah Khamenei have been appointed or selected, quote unquote, as a supreme leader. A middle-rank clergy without any charisma, without any seminarian background, without even any social base, he became the supreme leader. Khamenei tried to personalize power, and one of the effort that he did, or one of the policy he did, he tried to use the Basij and IRGC as its social base. During this time, there are a lot of discussion between President Hashemi Rafsanjani and the supreme leader to, trying to merge the IRGC with the Artesh, like the merging between the city police Gendarmerie and the Islamic Revolutionary Committee. But Ayatollah Khamenei disagreed with this idea, and instead of merging IRGC with the Artesh, he decided to expand IRGC. IRGC, who was only 3 branches, expanded to the 5 military branches: Army, Navy, Air Force. At the same time, IRGC Quds Force or Urshalim Force that have been created for extraterritorial activities, and the Basij. IRGC Quds Force is very interesting institution. The first commander of IRGC Quds Force, General Ahmad Vahidi, right now is the man behind the throne in Iran. He was the first commander of IRGC Quds Force that used his abilities to expand IRGC and expand its operation in Europe when the Bosnian War started, in South America, in Western countries. And he has a specific way of dealing with the issue and trying to use the terrorism and non-state actor to achieve that goal. And we have the Basij that came from one unit to one military branches. So you will see that the war led to the expansion and institution of the IRGC from a militia to the very extensive military. During this time, IRGC tried to professionalize, tried to create rank and file. At that time, before 1989, it was mostly an organization, military militia organization based on the brotherhood, without any rank, without any specific ranking. But after that, the recruitment, the training, the hierarchy of the IRGC have been created like a professional military organization. The third phase in transition of IRGC is when IRGC gradually are expanding from a military to what I call a conglomerate institution. That is not only a military that has an Air Force, Navy, and ground force, and has a civil militia Basij, or has an extraterritorial organization. It starts to encroach very quietly in economic, in political, in cultural, in social domain, very gradually. First, and more importantly, was economic aspect of the stories. After the war was ended, the question was, what are going to do with this IRGC and their forces? One of the idea was, let them get involved in the economy. They can make money for themselves, so the state is not able, or it does not need to provide the budget. At the same time, they will be busy and they are not going to get involved in politics. That was a very wrong idea, because as soon as they get involved in economy, and as soon as they start to collect money and became wealthier, they have to protect their own asset. And that's why they started to become interested in politics. Their interest in politics is about the time that the reformists came to the power, from 1997 to 2004. Reformists are coming to the power and trying to undermine Khamenei and trying to limit the power of the supreme leader. During this time, again, Khamenei are using IRGC and the Basij, trying to undermine and control the reformists. So with the 1999 student protest, the IRGC and Basij are very actively involved in the repression. More importantly, is a letter of 24 IRGC commanders who are writing to Khatami, the reformist president, that if you are not going to stop the reformers, student protests, we are going to take over the power. If you go and look at the people who signed these letters, you will see all of them, almost all of them, except one, almost all of them gradually became more powerful, got more promotion from Khamenei. Qasem Soleimani became the head of IRGC Quds Force, You have General Safavi, you have General Fadavi became the deputy commander of the IRGC, and a lot of these people. So this is another critical juncture that the IRGC start to expand is rule. This facilitated by the Ahmadinejad government. From 2000, gradually IRGC realized that it needs to get more active in political space in order to protect its economic and financial resources. From 2000, the repression of the reform movement, a student intellectual, intensified by the IRGC. At the same time, the IRGC started to take over the politics through the election. In 2003, in the city council election, in 2004, on the 7th parliamentary election, and finally in 2005 by presidential election. In 2003, when Tehran City Council had been dominated by IRGC, Basij, Hezbollah people, they elected Mahmoud Ahmadinejad as a mayor of Tehran. And then the mayor of Tehran is supporting and protecting the IRGC Basij benefit and resources in Tehran, giving a lot of contract, especially in terms of development to the IRGC economic headquarters. Like the past, another war happened that led to expansion of the military force and especially IRGC. And when I'm going to the end of this discussion, I will tell you why, in my opinion, IRGC does not want to have an agreement with the United States, because the IRGC will benefit from this war no matter how many of these people are going to be killed. They are coming out of it much more stronger. Like they came after the war much more stronger. And another war that actually led to the expansion of the IRGC was the US invasion to Iraq and Afghanistan. From this time, Saddam Hussein is over, Taliban is over, and IRGC goes forth, find opportunities to expand its presences in Iraq and Afghanistan, supporting the Shia militia in Iraq, Sepah Baath, and in Afghanistan, trying to create a quagmire for the American in order to stop them to invade Iran. The fourth phase in IRGC history is when the IRGC gradually coming from a conglomerate military force to become a deep state in Iran. The turning point of this event is 2009 Green Movement. Again, please remember, every circle of the crisis, either the mass uprising or the war, if it's not led to the change of the regime, will make the security and military much more stronger in the long term. And this happened in 2009 again, when there was a disputed presidential election. Ahmadinejad had been announced as the president of Iran. You will see the mass uprising, and then you will see a brutal repression. The result of this led Ayatollah Khamenei to be convinced that the IRGC need to be more stronger, powerful, and need to be more present in the state and non-state, bureaucracy. The result of 2009, one of them was creation of the IRGC intelligence organization. Again, please remember, in 1983, the IRGC intelligence unit have been dismantled, and the IRGC focus only on the military and on foreign intelligence. But in 2009, Ayatollah Khamenei ordered that the IRGC create, again, IRGC intelligence organization that is parallel to the Ministry of Intelligence and Securities, much more in terms of the individual, much more, bigger in terms of the informant that's working with the IRGC intelligence organization. Ahmadinejad government was a blessing for the IRGC because they started to expand in academia, in the college. My new book is coming, and I have explained how the IRGC tried to create their own, college system around the countries, and create their own network of the school. One of the schools have been targeted by the American missile in Minab, and they created a lot of controversy. That part of this expansion of the IRGC to the educational system. So you will see gradually IRGC are coming and became much more powerful and much more repressive. From 2009 to 2025, we can call it as a deep state, as really IRGC are the men who on the background are making decision and they are implementing decision. They are in a lot of Supreme Councils, including the Supreme Council of the Cultural Revolution, Supreme Council of Cyberspace, Supreme Council of in Iran, we have 120 Supreme Councils right now. Their name are not, I cannot think about all of the name, but about 122 Supreme Councils that works in parallel many times with the state bureaucracy in terms of the decision making, and almost all of them, the IRGC or the Basij has a very strong representation. But for me, the decentralization of IRGC is a sign of this deep creation of this deep state. Iran has about 31 provinces, and from 2009, the IRGC started to decentralize itself, creates a provincial IRGC or guard for each provinces. So if you think about the state bureaucracy, we have the president, we have the minister of interior, and in each province, we have the Ostandar or the provincial governor that works under control of the president. The IRGC came and created a very parallel, equal structure. In this scale, each state, each province has its own guard, provincial guard, that are interfering in almost every aspect of local politics, from the security, disciplinary, military, I don't know, in terms of the culture, in terms of the economy. They are in a lot of these small city councils or provincial councils. This is a beginning that you will see IRGC create a parallel structure like the state, and then try to work with the state, but to try to pressure a state what kind of the policy they have to follow. From 2013 to 2024, we have two presidents, President Rouhani, that he tried actually, not for the sake of the Iranian people, for the sake of its own power and its own social base, tried to push back IRGC. That was completely failure. The IRGC not only pushed back, but went and started to create much more different institution in terms of the cultural institution, create the cyberspace, create a media, create newspaper, create news agencies, anything that you can think about it. They create their own TV channels, TV program. In terms of the social effects, again, the IRGC, especially the provincial guard, they came and start to interfere in the issues that is not related to the army at all, including, for example, if there is an addiction problem, the IRGC created the camp trying to, cure these people, or the IRGC created a lot of a school, a lot of a program implemented even for marriage between the people who want to get married and they don't have the equipment. They provide them some logistic or some. On the pandemic is a very good example. When the pandemic COVID-19 happened, the IRGC is working parallel to a state in local, especially local level. They have their own program. They have their own clinic. They have to, and sometimes the provincial governor should come and negotiate it with the IRGC because they have a gun and they have a media and they have a power. every state bureaucracy, every state bureaucrat or technocrat is scaled to challenge the IRGC and try to compromise or try to make them happy and gave more concession to the IRGC. So gradually IRGC became much more powerful. Again, another war that was not our war, but we get into it, a Syrian civil war that started from 2011 and IRGC started to get involved. This creates more opportunity for IRGC Quds Force to mobilize and recruit, mobilize, indoctrinate, organize the Shia from around the world, from Bahrain to Iraq to Afghanistan, Pakistan, Yemen, Nigeria, just a few a name, and bring them, to the Syria trying to save Bashar al-Assad. IRGC from 2014 to IRGC Quds Force specifically to 2020, when Qasem Soleimani was assassinated, was a giant entity. Everybody, especially in the West, was afraid of IRGC Quds Force. They created the image of this elite institution that present everywhere and you cannot, handle it. Unfortunately, the nuclear deal that we signed in 2015, although it led to the economic growth of the countries, without any doubt, at the same time, it helped the IRGC to expand its presence in Syria, and more importantly, on missile program expanded. Under the Raisi, this deep state and visible state gradually are coming and overlapping. Raisi came to the power by the support of the IRGC, and as soon as he got the power, they brought a lot of IRGC commanders to work in the state administration, not as a minister, as a high-ranked bureaucrat and technocrat. A lot of IRGC commanders have been assigned from the guard temporarily to go and work in the Raisi administration. So from my point of view, under the Raisi from 2021 to 2024, you will see an overlapping between a deep state that Ayatollah Khamenei supported and expanded, and the visible state that we see it as a formal institution like presidency, parliament, and state bureaucracy. And these two gradually fuse to each other. Like war, all of these protests that happened because of the political repression, economic stagnation, environmental degradation, cultural repression, and more importantly, what I call the dummification of a state, that the state gradually became incompetent to provide the basic need for the Iranian. We have seen a lot of mass uprising or protests in Iran. From 2017, before Trump withdrew from the nuclear deal, to 2019, that the regime killed 1,500 Iranians, to 2020, that they shot directly in the eyes of the Iranian youth and, Iranian girls, to 2026, that nobody knows how many thousand Iranians have been died, but based on the Trump administration, about 40,000 Iranians have been killed in less than 1 week, 2 days. What is the consequences? The consequences of this protest that was convincing the regime that securitize all aspects of the life. They realized that the Iranians became more and more dissatisfied, disintegrated, more resentment to the regime. In a state to invest in infrastructure, in a state of investing in creating, job opportunities and responding to the people, they killed and they securitized. The last step, I think I still have 9 minutes. I will stop soon. So the last phase in IRGC transition, in my opinion, starts from the last June 2025, Israel attack to Iran, that continued with the mass uprising of the January 2026, and more importantly, February war. Islamic Republic, until now, even when IRGC became a deep state, was a theocratic regime. In the last 10 years, in the last decade, Islamic Republic was a two-security regime. Ayatollah Khamenei was on the top. Khamenei was not a normal or traditional clergy. From the beginning, he was a security military clergist. And he created this political order. But he died. He died immediately on February 28th, and the system started to shift in another direction. From the February 28 to now, what is clear from all of the evidence that we are seeing is that a state bureaucracy or state visible institution, a state visible state, Iran visible state, is not in charge. Not Pezeshkian, not Ghalibaf, not Ejei, in spite of being all of them brutal, all of them, they are not in charge. Somebody else in charge. They are talking about the Mujtaba being alive, but I really doubt it. I really doubt Mujtaba is alive, or even if he's alive, he's in the condition to take a decision. From my point of view, and a lot of observers over the world, the IRGC is becoming the institution that the rule in Iran. They took these opportunities to marginalize completely a state and became deep state. You have heard the news that even Pezeshkian are very dissatisfied with the IRGC, his foreign minister, that the IRGC is listening to the IRGC commander Ahmad Vahidi instead of listening to me. Nobody listened to Pezeshkian. Why? Because the center of gravity in the system right now is a revolutionary guard. But please remember, when we talk about the revolutionary guard, we are not talking about a monolithic institution. We are talking about 1,800 members of different rank, different file, and different expertise. So the Revolutionary Guard is not a monolithic institution. You have different people in the Revolutionary Guard that have a different idea and different interests. This on the right between security, military, political economy is from one of my research in 2021 when Raisi became, trying to figure it out who are who. And the left on the main circle inside of the guard is from the now, after a lot of these people have been assassinated or killed, including Shamkhani, including some of them have died, some of them became irrelevant. Right now, in my opinion, there are three circles inside of the IRGC that they're trying to compete with each other, but these are the decision-making in Iran. The more importantly is Ahmad Vahidi circle that became the head of the IRGC. Zolghat, the speaker of the Supreme Council of National Security, is also part of it. Hossein Taeb is also part of it. Aziz Jafari, in my opinion, was the most competent IRGC commander that have been pushed aside after he criticized Ghalibaf and the embezzlement of the $1 million by Ayatollah Khamenei. He still has a strong support inside of the IRGC, especially because he was more pious, more not very corrupt. And the last one is a Ghalibaf circle. Ghalibaf was the IRGC commander, but he came to the politics in 2005. And since then, he was more politician and one of the most corrupted politicians of the Islamic Republic that almost inside of the guard is not very popular among of the more pious, more ideological friends, but he has his own network. For example, the head of IRGC, Quds Qani, is very close allies to, and the last slide, and I will stop here. So my argument is the Revolutionary Guard, first, the regime is changing, but not in a way that we wanted to change. The regime changed from a theocratic regime of 1979 to the security regime in 2026. And the center of this transition is the IRGC that gradually expand its territory and power. Again, this is not because of the war. This is a long process. War make it visible, facilitate that last transition from deep state to dominant state. And I will stop here, and if there is any question, more than happy to answer that.
Thank you so much, Professor Golkar. We do have a few questions and comments. The first question was just a technical clarification. On one of your earlier slides, you mentioned the Basij militia is between 90,000 to 1 million. The viewer's just wanting to clarify if it's 90,000 to 1 million or 900,000 to 1 million.
From the slide is actually taken from a book from 1996. So at that time, the idea was the Basij is about 90,000 people. Basij right now, if you look at the Basij, there are different layers of the Basij membership. The regular, the active, the cadre, and a special Basij. In my opinion, Basij has about 1 million members in all of these categories, from the regular one that you're just going and getting a card to the special one. But the core of the Basij is about 100,000, the two top rank of the Basij. The cadre and the special one is about 100,000, that they are much more ideologically loyal and committed to the regime.
Great, thank you. One viewer asks, what can we do to inform the Western masses and share this valuable information to them? And then maybe just to add on to that, what aspect of this information do you wish maybe the Trump administration had been aware of or had maybe considered a little bit more when thinking about regime change in Iran?
I think both of them knows what is happening, honestly. The Western world completely knows what is happening in Israel. But in my opinion, they prefer to, like ostrich, put their head on the sand and pretend nothing is happening. Think about the Britain, for example. They know what is happening. The state office, they know for many, many years. But either they are benefiting from the situation, or they try not to get involved, like the Germany, for example. And in Trump administration, I think inside of the administration, they know what is happening. And that's why the possibility of another wave of the war is very, very imminent. In my opinion, in less than 4 weeks, we will see another round of the conflict, because they know the new creation is much more monstrous. In my opinion, if that's system consolidate, we will see a modern security state that is much more repressive, and you can see the repression right now, the shutdown of the internet, the execution of political prisoners, everything, and will be much more, in terms of the foreign policy and regional policy, much more aggressive. You will see after Trump, they are just waiting for the Trump to leave the office. They try to outlast Bibi Netanyahu. And after that, consolidating the power, you will see the same story. The Shia militia, missile program, trying to enrich uranium. And this time, they learn that actually they are not be able to go out, to be kicked out. They will be emboldened.
Thank you. A couple more questions coming in. When you say the IRGC needs to be weakened or transformed, what are the dynamics that can influence this?
Sorry. When we talk about the IRGC, you have to remember the IRGC is the most ideological institution in Iran. And that's not by chance. That's a policy, especially Ayatollah Khamenei implemented from 1998, when most of the IRGC voted for the Khatami. In 1997, about 70% of the IRGC families voted for the Khatami, and that surprises Khamenei, and that was threatening. So he started to do three things. First, he purged the IRGC from 1999, 2009, two most important ones. Second, increase the indoctrination of IRGC. So every member of the IRGC go through the indoctrination, political and ideological indoctrination. This increased from 20% to about 50% of the training is ideological, political training. And the third was changing the recruitment of the IRGC. In 1990, any Iranian was able to go and fill out the form and join the IRGC after the exam, of course. But from 2010, the IRGC works like an exclusive club. You have to be invited to the IRGC. They go to the mosque, they go to the Basij bases, they see who are the most committed one, and they are inviting these people to join, and then they go through indoctrination. So they became much more. And that's why Iranian society massively became secularized, became pro-Western, the IRGC going completely on the other hand. There is a civil IRGC gap in Iran, very, very broad. And because the IRGC has the power, media, and money, they are very able to rule, and they don't understand what the society is in the society is happening. But inside of the IRGC, there is no same level of ideological commitment. There are people who are much more, they are less ideologic, more interested on the well-being of their families and themselves. That are some of the IRGC. You have to have a different strategy. You have to buy some of them off, trying to, that's the only solution. You cannot kill 180,000 people. You have to try to figure it out why these people join, and then what you can give in exchange to that. I can tell it's very, very difficult, honestly, but it's not impossible. Some of them will stick to the regime to the end. There is no doubt about it. But there are some strategies that we can implement to try to, make sure not to defect. That's became very not to defect, but try to separate them from the ideological core.
Thank you. I want to ask two economy-related questions. The first is, with the economic pressure due to the current naval blockade, will the Ghalibaf Circle lose power within the IRGC structure? And then with the IRGC's greater control and influence in the economy, how are they balancing the increasing economic costs in their business conglomerates and the people at large with their own military goals?
Oh, first, I'm not an economist, so please take everything that I said with a lot of salt, not a grain of the salt, a lot of salt. But Ghalibaf is not very popular among of the IRGC because since 2005 that he started to run the presidential campaign, he like a chameleon, he changed his color a lot of time. And, a lot of, scandal out of his family, his son who tried to get a, permanent residency in Canada, his daughter who went to the Turkey to buy some stuff. So there are a lot of scandal against this guy. Aziz Jafari in 2019 in a leaked recording talking about the Ghalibaf embezzled millions of dollars from the Tehran municipalities. So these are the most important reason behind the unpopularity of Ghalibaf. He's a very power-greedy man of the kind that most of the IRGC don't trust him. That's the first one. The second is, unfortunately, the economic hardship that we are seeing right now, the naval barricade, the sanction, is not going to hurt IRGC too much, because for the regime dominated by the Guard, is mostly important that make sure their members are being paid and they are being taken care of, because that people will defend the system. So how many Iranian people are going to suffer? This is not a concern of the IRGC. Maybe some idea behind the naval barricade is that pressure, yes, will hurt Iranian people, but they will, they will revolt. I don't know. We have to wait and we see that. But I can tell, IRGC has shown in the last 13 years that the sanction started was always find a solution to find a new way to generate money. From the formal economy, getting involved in the state contract, to informal economy and to criminal economy. The drug smuggling, the weapon smuggling around the world. They have their own port. They have their own airport, seaport. They have their own. They are controlling borders. So really, they are able to generate money And don't forget, in North Korea, under a lot of sanction, or in Cuba, or even in Syria, the sanction was not able to stop the regime that are unified.
Thank you. It sounds like, excuse me, it sounds like you're saying it will take a while before economic pressure even reaches the IRGC at this point.
Yes, it actually will reach Iranian people and much more, vulnerable Iranian people on the lower class, then middle class, upper class, and then the IRGC. But it takes time, and
thank you. And a technical question about how the IRGC functions. Can you say a little bit more about how it relates to Iranian proxies such as Hezbollah and Hamas?
The IRGC has, right now in 2010, they changed its political structure, has 4 forces and several institutions, like IRGC Intelligence Organization, IRGC Protection, but there are 4 forces. One of them is IRGC Quds Forces. IRGC Quds Force is mostly a logistic and coordinative force. They are collaborating with a university called Al-Mustafa University. Al-Mustafa University created to train and recruit and convert people from around the world to the Shia Islam, and promote Shia Islam around the world. So what they are doing is Al-Mustafa University is going to Africa, their missionaries, talking with the people. Do you want to understand Islam? Do you want to understand Shia Islam? We will give you a scholarship, go to Iran and studies. And then when you are coming to Iran to studies, then IRGC Quds Force will come and will approach you. Do you want to work, for us? Some of them will accept, some of them don't accept, and they prefer to work in a cultural issue. That's one version. The second version is for the Shia in Pakistan, in Afghanistan, in Iraq, or in Bahrain, for example. They have a long history of this Shia group inside of the countries since 1979. They started to organize a small group of these people, train them, and these people go to their own communities and start to recruit. And then there are different academy for the IRGC Quds Force. So it's a very mostly face-to-face, approach to find the mostly Shia, because they are much more prone to the ideology of the Islamic Republic. But they have a group when during Syria civil war, they try to have a bodyguard of Sunni Muslim in Sistan Baluchistan. They called it Nabaviyun Brigade. That was only less than, in my opinion, 25, 30 people. 25, 30 people. They was not able to recruit too much of that group. Most of them are coming from the Shia, and most or the converted to the Shia Islam.
Thank you. And another kind of structural question: when there are disputes between a local state institution and an IRGC parallel institution, how do those get resolved, and who arbitrates those disagreements?
There should be some discussion or some disagreement, without any doubt. But if you are working with a state bureaucracy, and the IRGC is approaching you, asking you to do something, you have 2 options. You said no, you said yes. The option of saying no, it will target you as an IRGC. They are coming, arresting you, putting a pressure on your families. So really, this tension, although exists, but many times there is no arbitrary, the ruler between these two. This is the pressure of IRGC and expansion of this IRGC that makes other people to follow the IRGC in almost every decision making that they want. They are part of, in every province we have the security, prevention of security organization, that the IRGC is a strong member. In every local committee or local councils inside of the cities, IRGC is there. In fact, if you think about one city, you have Farmandar, you have the governor of that city, you have Imam Jum'eh or the Friday Pray, and you have the IRGC as a security of that cities. So you have Friday Pray that is ideologically close to the IRGC. They are under control of, and these two has in every situation are able to push their own agenda.
Thank you. Is the Trump administration consulting scholars such as yourself to gain a better understanding of the reality in Iran? It seemed that maybe they assumed that killing Khamenei would bring down the regime, which obviously didn't work so far.
To be honest, since I moved to the US from 2010, no administration asked me anything about my expertise. Not Obama, not Trump, not Biden, none of them.
That's interesting. Thank you for sharing. On the economic front, another viewer writes, do you think a food crisis or hyperinflation would have any impact on the IRGC?
The whole idea of the naval blockade and continuation is that this will break Iran economy, and most importantly, put the pressure on the Iranian lower class, and because they cannot bring bread and butter on the table, they are going to revolt. Based on a small discussion that I have with the friends and families around Iran, the price is jumping not daily, hourly. One of my friends told me that I tried to buy a phone and I didn't have enough money on the bank. So I asked my friend to transfer money. Less than 15 minutes, I bought a phone, 5 million toman more expensive. And the day after, it's 45 million toman expensive. So we are dealing with the super inflation in Iran that impacted the much more vulnerable Iranian, the poor Iranian. The state started to fire a lot of these private companies, state semi-private company are firing their own employee. They are not able to, and that will, transit in next 2 or 3 months. It will be a huge problem. And that's why, in my opinion, IRGC has 2 other options. Either come and sign a deal, or if they don't, they are going, and this is maybe this from yesterday, some people are talking about it, that the IRGC try to escalate, to de-escalate. I hate this concept, but it's going, this is right now for them in past situation. They cannot continue naval blockade. They cannot, because the whole Iran oil industry will be impacted very badly. So they have to do something. And by doing something is maybe they start to attack U.S. Navy, or start to attack other region, try to put more pressure on American and the region in hope that the Trump will withdraw. If that not happen, again, we will see a new round of the conflict, much more destructive.
So if the administration did come to you and ask you for your advice or recommendations on what to do going forward, what might you say?
I really, what I can say is, right now you try to change the regime and you created much more worse nightmare for both Iranian and for region and international. I think you cannot let that happen. You have to bring them to sign, or you have to take him over. And if I want to do something, again, maybe targeted attack on the more, hardliner one. If the whole idea, they are talking that the hardliner are taking over the power and doesn't let diplomacy work. So naturally, if you want to diplomacy works, you have to, get rid of the hardliner. So maybe that's a better strategy that don't impact Iranian people. Just, you are targeting a specific individual. You're putting me in a very difficult situation.
Sorry, thank you for sharing. We just have 2 minutes left. Do you want to say anything about your forthcoming book or any future research you're working on right now?
I'm actually working on the book on, as I told, this is part of that book, that transformation of the Islamic Republic from a theocratic regime to the theocratic republican system, and from theocratic republican to the theocratic security in the last 20 years. And what I'm seeing right now, transition to the more, in this book, I talk about all of these security forces, including MIOS, including, police, and there is a chapter on political sociology of these people, where they are coming from, why they are so ideologic, why they are so religious. That's right now is an issue, that why these people are not defecting. Because we don't understand the Islamic Republic. Many of even Iranian in the diaspora does not deal with these people in the more regular. They are coming from the modern middle class or upper middle class, and they have no idea why these people are acting in this way. So I'm trying to understand first the structure of security forces, then the political sociology of security forces. One chapter talk about how they are getting involved in the politics and in decision making in terms of economy, in terms of the sport, in terms of the cultural decision. And the last chapter is how they are taking over from impacting decision to become the main decision making. And then we have a better idea of why we are dealing with. I think one of the problems that I see in the administration generally and the Western audience of Iran is we are not able, or at least so far have not been able, to identify what kind of the animal we are dealing with. I know I had a discussion with a lot of people who believe we can change this regime if I had $2 million or $3 million. And this is just a naivete. You have no idea what you're talking about. Because some of us think this is a normal dictatorship. Or some of us, we think, for example, this is a hybrid regime that right now, it was a hybrid regime during the reform, but it's not anymore. So if you understand what kind of the regime we have, and what are the pillars of this regime are, and how they are thinking, it will lead to the better understanding. The last thing that I want to say, we undermine the rule of ideology. And when we said we, most of a scholar, when we talk about the regime being ideologic, I know the pushback from my colleagues that no, this regime are corrupt, and the corruption, they are not really committed to any ideology. But I think after this conflict and the situation, we have to accept that they are thinking differently with a very different framework. If you don't understand this framework, if you don't understand that, you cannot understand the policy. Without any doubt, there are a lot of corrupt people. But even that corrupt people justify the corruption through the lens of ideology. That ideology is important. That's it, bring these people together to the street. Yes, part of it is money, but part of it is ideology. I talked with a lot of pro-regime supporters since the conflict started, the people who are on the street, the family, the friends, and just trying to understand why they're going to the street, why they're asking. And again, the regime has about 15% of the Iranian social support. Out of this 15, in my opinion, about 20 to 30% are really ideologic. 20, 30% are religious, are not politically active, but religious, and they are afraid of their losing their religion. And 20 to 30% are very opportunistic, based on their rent supporting the regime. And they're afraid that the regime is go, their rent will go, either access to universities or money or companies. And that's bring them together. But the most scary one are the ideologic one. Because with the rent, you can do something. With the ideology, either you have to kill them or they have to kill you. So what we have to do is they're understanding this ideology.
That's fascinating. No, thank you so much for sharing. We look forward to having you back when the book is out. Thank you for a wonderful presentation. It's nice.
My pleasure, always.
We'll see you soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Milani, and all of the Iranian studies and all of the audiences.